Welcome to the SSAA Victoria podcast. As we sit here, the big news overnight is that the Victorian government has come out and rejected the New South Wales style overreach with our firearm laws. So after 6 months or so of toing and froing, it's been confirmed there'll be no numerical caps, no blanket recategorisations of straight pulls or button release firearms. The government's effectively acknowledged what we've been saying all along, is that Victoria already has a heavily regulated and mature firearms framework. So there are still some changes that will come. There's going to be tougher trafficking penalties, stronger background checks, strengthened firearm prohibition orders. There's also going to be a citizenship requirement for licence holders, subject to some exemptions, which SSAA Victoria did argue against, and we'll continue to have that conversation and prosecute to make that work for as many people as we can. Just from a SSAA Victoria perspective, I think our members can be really proud of the major role that their organisation played in this. We invested very heavily in policy work, in expert consultants, in political engagement and in a sustained digital campaign, because this was an existential threat to our members and their interests and what we do as shooters. And that's only possible, that level of advocacy, because we stand on the shoulders of nearly 50,000 members who pay up every year, who give us the credibility of those large numbers and the ability to engage seriously and professionally. So it's a sincere thanks to the members for supporting the organisation that can do this sort of work. It's not the end of the process. The government will continue engaging through National Cabinet, and there'll be further legislation rolling out, which we will work on with the government as closely as we can. But yesterday really provides a bit of closure on that whole Bondi response and the threat that firearms were under or seem to be under in Victoria. And I think we can get back to normal now and go and put your PTAs in and buy yourself that straight pull. That's what I'm planning on doing, with the caveat that my wife does not listen to this podcast. So,
incoming blazer.
Incoming blazer, that's right. And we're confident that not just us, this entire firearms sector that's been really cohesive through the last 6 months can continue to work really positively to make sure that Victoria remains really well regulated with firearms, but that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and buckle to a few extremists who just don't want us to shoot at all. So that was the big news coming out. Other news this morning, David, the deer harvest data was released for 2025.
Yeah. So high numbers again. So 158,500. So just short of 160,000 total deer taken in 2025. I think we were 167 odd thousand the year before. So recreational hunters out there taking a significant number of deer and having an impact on those populations.
That's not what I read in the media.
Oh, don't get me started. Oh, gee.
I didn't hear the word feral once then.
Our friends at the Invasive Species Council that talk up this huge problem and say they've got the solution as long as you give them plenty of money. We're not asking for money. We're just asking for recreational hunters to be given the opportunity to get out there and do what they enjoy doing.
Oh, we're not asking for money. We're putting $127 million a year into the economy. We're supporting 1,700 jobs. That's just deer hunting.
Oh, you don't look at the details, Baz. We just create a crisis so that we can generate income. And I see Facebook posts, the Invasive Species Council, once again talking up this huge problem with deer and asking for donations. So they're not just trying to hit up the government for donations. They're trying to hit up the general public. Because,
and how many deer are they removing with these donations?
Well, this is a really good question because I don't know that they're actually removing any. They're talking about it. They talk about this huge problem. They talk up the issue. But how many they're actually taking compared to what hunters are taking?
Zero.
Yeah,
160,000 threes is full of venison. It's a pretty good problem to have.
Oh, absolutely. And look, there's real potential to increase that as we go forward. We've talked about wanting a deer management strategy in the past. And we certainly want to push that to make sure that recreational hunters, and we've talked about this too, recreational hunting isn't the answer to deer problems in every situation where they're occurring, where we've got overabundance. But recreational hunting is a big part of the puzzle. It's the biggest part of the puzzle if we're going to control deer numbers.
Yeah. Other big news in the last few weeks, we had the state budget. So the fox bounty continued, which was pleasing for our members who take advantage of that. The big one was $2.5 million to seal Gifkins Road. So Gifkins Road's the road to the Eagle Park complex at Little River, our major shooting range. It gets 30,000 visits a year, and the road is third world. It's pretty horrible. Sure. It's a significant facility, so it's great that the government's seen that. and they're investing $2.5 million for the City of Greater Geelong to fully seal that road. So we've already had advanced discussions with people in Regional Development Victoria, and they're really keen to get that project moving, so that's fantastic. Also some money for policy work on dual licence butchers, so to allow hunters New Zealand style to take their food to the local butcher and get it processed into small goods. It's not exactly a linear path to Hunters for the Hungry because there's other prime safety sort of requirements that are required for that, but it keeps advancing this conversation about wild shot game as a really great food resource. And there's been a pathway the government's been on for about a decade now of slowly removing barriers and slowly progressing to get to this point. So it's one more great step. So really positive
it's really
stuff.
Important. There's so many people going and harvesting these deer, and a lot of it's getting wasted. And if we can get it processed professionally, it's a game changer.
Yeah, we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
And we've seen these sort of programs overseas for decades and decades.
Yeah.
So it certainly can be done. It can be done with sort of safe food handling. So, fingers crossed we'll get there, and particularly leading into the Hunters for the Hungry. Some real good potential there.
You see when we do shows and stuff, you see the most attended parts of the show are always the skinning, boning and butchering demos.
At Shot Expo, Bogey standing up the front pulling a deer apart. It was
100,000 people.
Amazing. It was just stacks of people wanting to watch that. So.
Yeah, and it always is. It's it's one thing to learn how to hunt the deer, and then you got to deal with the carcasses. So if we can get a pathway through butchery as well, it would be awesome.
Other news: duck season winds up next weekend.
Yeah, it's just it seems to go quickly. It goes faster every year, it seems.
That wasn't meant to be a pun, flown by. But yeah.
We sit there waiting for opening. Opening happens, and all of a sudden we're facing closing weekend a week and a half away. So
hog deer season's done. Hound season's in full throw.
Yep.
Few blokes we know are packing off going to New Zealand for the tar rut, but it's all happening.
Yeah, quail's been pretty quiet. We haven't heard much about quail. Duck hunting, you were out recently, Daryl.
Yes.
Been getting a few reports that there have been a few more birds around in some areas.
Yeah, they're certainly moving into northern Victoria. Hit and miss though. I was on one wetland and we might have had 50 to 100 birds, and we drove down the road and there was 5,000 or 10,000 birds. And it seems even since last week there was another. They've moved again, and where we were, where there was 50 birds, there's now 5,000 again. So yeah, they're definitely moving around and probably heading south, I'd suggest.
And that's duck hunting, right? You've had the opportunity to hunt. You've had a really robust bag limit that you can hunt to. I think people would have struggled to fill that bag limit. That's fine.
Yeah, I think. Look, some people are certainly getting birds, but it's the old scout hunt, go scouting again. Certainly not birds everywhere like they have been in the past, but there's birds out there. Just got to go find them.
Got to hunt them.
Got to hunt them. You've definitely got to hunt them.
All right.
This year.
All right. So speaking of hunting, we'll roll straight into this morning's guest. It was Travis Dowling, who's the CEO of the Victorian Fisheries Authority. I think when someone Wikipedia's Victorian Fisheries Authority in future years, Travis Dowling will have been the only CEO of that organisation.
Possibly, yeah.
So Trav's been in that role since the VFA started. Before that, wide roles in fisheries, both in Victoria and interstate, and worked as an advisor to government ministers and in departments, and various roles before that, and certainly been well known to people in the shooting and hunting world for the last 20 years or so, through the sort of tangential roles that he's had. Always been a pretty keen supporter of hunting, and with his authority, the Victorian Fisheries Authority, you don't own it, I know that, but merging with the Game Management Authority on July 1, we thought it was timely to get Travis in and talk all things fishing, hunting, and how they can work together.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to join you gentlemen, handsome-looking fellas this morning, and really looking forward to chatting about fishing and chatting about hunting and chatting about forward driving and dispersed camping.
Yeah, very good. We'll start on just a bit of your background, I suppose, Trav, where you grew up and came from.
Yeah, so I reckon there's a fair few of your podcast viewers and listeners that might have bumped into me over the years, but I was born in a town called Euroa in northeast Victoria, just on the foothills of the Strathbogie Ranges. I grew up there, went to high school in Euroa. I used to shoot and hunt and fish in the creek and hunt on my mates' farms around Euroa. And I spent a lot of time in my high school years. I started with traps for rabbits, and then I moved to ferrets for rabbits, and then I moved to a Winchester 15-shot semi-auto 22 for rabbits, and
Those were the days.
yeah, no, it was it was a ripper. And we'd go out and get 60 or 80 pair of rabbits in an afternoon, and when you were getting $1.80 a pair back in the 80s, that was better than the $13 a week you would get for doing a paper round. So that was my youth and my growing up, and my dad was a mad cod fisherman, so we spent every school holidays fishing for Murray cod in the Edwards River and the Murray River and the Goulburn and the Ovens. But then I moved down to Melbourne, and life's never been as good.
You didn't go straight into fishing or this field. You went to uni and went into sort of a justice sort of field.
Yeah, so I went to La Trobe Uni. I came out of that. Worked as a parole officer, a corrections officer for a little while. Then I worked up at Ararat Prison. And
is that why you think you'll be familiar to a lot of our?
Yeah, so I did a bit of that, and then I moved up to the Northern Territory, and I worked with Justice up in the Northern Territory. And while I was up there, I became a board member of the Amateur Fishermen's Association, or AFAN, up in the Northern Territory, and got a little bit involved in politics up there, and ended up working for the Primary Industries and Fisheries Minister up there. But all of you have spent some time up there. Fantastic geese shooting up there. I ate a lot of geese stew while I was up there. And a wonderful fishing and outdoor life. And I used to say it was one of the few places in Australia where you could have a really significant career, but also drive 5 minutes and you're in the middle of mangroves and wetlands, walking around up to your knees in mud, putting in pots for mud crabs and catching barra and
Darwin Harbour.
Yeah, Darwin Harbour. At Racecourse Creek. So. It was remind me a lot of Euroa, except there wasn't too many senior jobs in Euroa at that time. So
more crocodiles.
Yeah.
Then you came back here and you were working as an advisor in the Brax government?
Yeah, that's right. So I worked for Cheryl Garbett as Environment Minister, and then I worked for John Thwaites as Environment Minister. Then I switched over and I was Chief of Staff to Andre Hairmeyer when he was Police Minister. So that was during the Piranha days, and that was a very interesting time, being Chief of Staff for the Police Minister during that time. And then I moved over to become John Thwaites' Chief of Staff when he was Deputy Premier, he had Environment. But I did a lot of work during that time with Bob Cameron. In the 2006 election campaign, we worked together on, I think it was the first hunting policy that Labor had put out at a state election, and worked with some people like Rod Drew and Russ Bate and Colin Wood, a lot of the old luminaries of the hunting scene, and we worked up what was a really good policy at that time. And I think the most significant part of it was that Labor had come up with a strong hunting policy. And I remember a few times people said, but aren't all Labor people lefty greenies? And I'm going, well, I think you might have visited a few factory workers that you might have read that the wrong way. That was 2006, and there was it went from there basically.
In 2010, I think there was a policy document that I've been very keen on waving under people's noses, that was to have a fish and game authority in Victoria.
That's right. There was. Never got up. Probably.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, well, that's right.
16 years later.
Yeah, it did. And I think, and I know that I've got a lot of skin in this game, but pulling fishing and hunting out of the agriculture department is a really important and necessary tool. And I look around Australia where those pastimes continue to be part of the Department of Ag, and sadly they are a forgotten cousin. And I feel that was often happening in Victoria, but once we became a standalone authority, it wasn't then about how many clovers you could get for dairy cows and what the wheat prices were doing in Iraq. It was actually about what can we do to make fishing better, and that's been the journey ever since.
Yeah, and for hunting, we've noticed the same thing. So for many decades, we were either a bit of an uneasy fit with environment or an uneasy fit with agriculture, and the creation of that outdoor recreation portfolio to have us recognise what we are, an economic development portfolio, rather than an uneasy fit with industries, been really beneficial.
Oh, no, 100%. And like some of the... David chatted about some of the stats earlier, just in terms of the amount of jobs and economic stimulus that this recreation provides. And, always get very frustrated at a national level when I go to fisheries meetings, and all of the talk is about how many tonnes of commercial fish are being caught. And I'm saying there's 7.5 million Australians who recreationally fish. They produce, like $10 billion of economic stimulus, tens of thousands of jobs, and the same applies to hunting. Yet why isn't that part of the conversation? And we are often ridiculed for it. Oh, that's sort of that's the nonsense stuff. That's not the serious stuff.
Yeah,
right?
amateur fishing.
Yeah, that's the amateur stuff. And we go, well, it's interesting. I mean, I like to consider Victoria 30 years ahead of a lot of the other states in the country that will catch up eventually. And some of it can be a really challenging journey, particularly where you're reallocating resources and you're having to stand up to particular interest groups and do things. But you get to a point where we're at in Victoria now, where you have the strongest fisheries in Australia. You've done the heavy lifting. You've got booming snapper, whiting, calamari fisheries, southern bluefin tuna, trophy fisheries. You can't put your toe in a river in inland Victoria without a Murray cod biting it. So and the same has happened with game. I look at game and I drive around Victoria, and I think deer are an absolutely wonderful game species, and we could talk about trout in that same frame. And I was fascinated by this invasive species council discussion earlier, because I'm thinking, where are these guys on carp? Like carp is, and it is absolutely destroying our environment. It is destroying our rivers. It's completely compromising a lot of our rebuilding native fisheries. Yet they don't seem to be in this space.
No money in carp.
Well, it's fascinating to me.
You look at what they've done in the duck hunting space. You look at what they've done to the wetlands. Just absolutely destroyed the wetlands.
100%. Yeah.
But there's no noise about carp anymore. There's no money.
Yeah.
Is it because they're under the water and nobody sees them? Or?
Well, I've always said that if carp lived on the land and ate grass,
there would be a crisis.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So that's but I would love to see the Invasive Species Council in that space. But we, as I might have touched,
I'll tell you the space I'd love to see them in.
Sure, yeah. Well, and I know this debate about deer, but I find it it shouldn't even be a debate. Deer are a valued recreational hunting commodity in Victoria. They should be appreciated for that. I mean, I know you guys do a lot of work with the Australian Deer Association. They're absolutely a wonderful group of people as well. And what we have, like trout, you have a species that's come along that's providing economic stimulus across the country. Yes, they're being managed on private land, and yes, farmers are knocking them off where they're impacting upon people's farming enterprises. But in terms of a natural resource that gets people off screens, gets people out physically walking around. If you tried to hike up one of those mountains after a deer, the money that's probably saving Victoria's health system and hospitals through blokes hiking up, their heart disease coming down, and then the money they spend in places like Mansfield and Jamison and Kevington and Marysville, and it's not a debate.
It's really, really encouraging to hear you talking that way, because obviously GMA has been limited. They haven't been able to promote hunting like the VFA has been able to promote fishing. So I think sort of with Outdoor Rec Victoria coming on board, if we can get this promotion, I think that's going to be really beneficial for the future of hunting in this state. So really, really, really encouraging to hear what you're saying.
Well, I think it's a real threshold question. I mean, if you recognise hunting as a legitimate recreational activity, right, and you pass that point, then being able to promote that activity is a no-brainer, right? Now, sure, there are some people who don't recognise hunting, and that's fine. They've got their views, I don't follow golf, but I'm not going to go there and tell people that they can't go and play golf. Or
go out on the ninth with your big flag.
Yeah, that's right. I'm the worst golfer in the world, but
No, you're not.
But I respect and appreciate people's, their right to go and play golf and have a great, and enjoy it. And I think as an entity, Outdoor Recreation Victoria, it's a very exciting time, not just for Victoria, for Australia, to have an entity that is not restrained by these arbitrary philosophies that you can't be a regulator and grow a an activity as well. I mean,
The rest of the world seems to be able to do it
absolute
quite well.
well, it is. I mean, I'd compare it to the AFL, and you'd say, well, oh no, they can't actually try and grow and promote the game because they set the rules for the game. I'm going, well,
Yeah, we need to get umpires from outside of football.
yeah. So I think it's a really exciting time for hunting and fishing and camping and forward driving in Victoria, where you have an organisation that is dedicated to not just making sure that people are doing the right thing, and most people do the right thing. It's a very, very small number who don't, but will actually be out there going, where's our next access opportunity? Why can't we take a deer in and get it bagged up and have really fresh meat? So there's some pretty exciting days to come, I think.
Oh, look, all those things fit hand in hand. You won't find a hunter that doesn't have a four-wheel drive and a tent and a fishing rod in the shed. It's just, all those things go hand in hand. So to have them all together is fantastic.
And the regulation is important. I think GMA has certainly developed into a really effective regulator for hunting. I wouldn't say they always have been, but they've certainly developed into it. And if you look at stuff just over the last month or two, with a decent prosecution service behind them, both anti-hunters and illegal hunters getting dealt with very harshly by the courts for stepping out of line, which is exactly what we want to see. We want to promote responsible hunting, and part of responsible hunting is weeding out the dickheads.
Yeah, and I couldn't speak more highly of the GMA team. Like, they're just the people there. I know, people like Zach Powell and Simon Toop and Graham Ford and all the game officers. I mean, they do a fantastic job, but they've to an extent had their hands tied behind their back in terms of what the legislation's allowed them to do, and this new legislation, this new entity, it will enable basically fishing, hunting, camping, forward driving to be promoted holistically. So that'll be great. And as you've said, in fishing, I think what do we look at it? 10% of the bad eggs who do the wrong thing are responsible for 90% of the illegal take of fish. So our focus is on the deliberate bad eggs that are out there, and you take care of those guys, and the rest of all of us can get on and just enjoy what we're doing when they're out there fishing and hunting.
I think what VFA have done with actually advertising the fact, constantly every time I open Facebook, I see a photo of some bloke's boat and, 50 abalone next to it. And we've taken the boat, the car, the fishing rods, the equipment, the diving gear, you've taken it. And I think GMA is starting to follow that as well. There's a lot more advertising of the fact that they are taking people's firearms off them.
Dave and I were out at duck opening, and the boys from Fieldmaster, they're doing the drone work, surveillance drone. Yeah. So Lockie was up over the other side of the road with the drone up in the air, and I was watching the big screen on the back of the car and took a photo of them, a couple of blokes hundreds of metres away, going through the reeds recovering a duck. And I was showing some hunters later in the camp. Bloke goes, "Oh, that's me and me mate." And he goes, "What were they doing?" I said, "They were checking to see if you were recovering the duck." And they go, "We were." I said, "Yeah, I know you are. You can see on the film you were, mate." Yeah. But they weren't upset about the fact that there was a drone there keeping an eye on them. They thought it was great. They're going, "Oh, well, they saw me having good behaviour." Yeah. Blokes, I'll give you my number. Can you send me that photo? Yeah. They're actually wrapped to be well regulated.
Yeah.
And I think that's the majority of people who are doing the right thing. They want to see the regulators out there. They want to see the laws enforced, because it does reflect poorly on them if other people are out there doing the wrong thing. And it's taking a resource from them as well. So, and we talked the other day about sort of focusing on the big picture stuff, so those people deliberately doing the wrong thing, and that educational component of it as well. So people potentially make minor mistakes and things like that. Do you see that it's more of an education process there?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And look, I've used this this story a few times, but a retiring officer once said to me that when he started up at Tatura Shepparton, that you could walk into the pub on a Friday night with a cod wrapped up in newspaper that you'd caught illegally in a drum net, and you could sell it for $20. So by the time he retired 30 years later, if you walked into the pub in Shepparton with a cod wrapped in newspaper, you'd get a punch in the nose. That society had moved on. It just it wasn't like good on you, mate, you got away with one. It's, hey mate, you're going to stuff this up for all of us, and we're all in it together. So that sense of stewardship, and it's there with fishers, it's there with hunters. Yeah, it is. Everyone wants to look after what we've got, not compromise it. So that education piece is really important. It's not just the big stick. It's about saying, hey, let's all be, in this together. You know, SSAA got 50,000 members. We sell nearly 300,000 fishing licenses a year. There's a lot of people out there that want to do the right thing, and it is interesting. And where we're at with fisheries, I'll make this point. We have a really good compliance program, and you know they do a great job, as you've seen, with the boat seizures and so forth. And these are the bad eggs who they're deliberately out there at night or at different times concealing stuff under the
Yeah, they
floor.
haven't made a mistake.
No, they're not. They haven't got one or two undersized, snapper or a flathead. They've deliberately gone out their way.
there,
Yeah. So we've got that, but then we've got every weekend just about an event occurring across Victoria where we're getting mums and dads along for free, and we're inspiring them to go out fishing and to buy a rod. I mean, Trelly loves it because every time we do something up at Shepparton,
Trelly would.
Trelly's just going ka-ching. This is awesome, and that's really important too. So we can do the seasoning of the boats, and we can do the festivals where we have music there, and sometimes the music brings in some of the people that aren't that interested in fishing, but they'll come along because there will be live music in the afternoon, and but it's a real family thing, and all of a sudden you've got a family going, hey, actually, let's go out camping and fishing more. So that's a really important part of what we do and what we're planning to do with Outdoor Rec Victoria too. So,
Yeah, I like what you say about this stewardship. Like, it's not acceptable anymore.
Yeah.
We had an incident on the weekend just passed. A couple of young blokes turned up to a wetland and decided to, go out gunboating.
yeah, it was a couple of glass, wasn't it?
Yeah, that wasn't that one, but this
right.
one was just two young blokes in a boat that thought they'd have a shot out of the boat, and they quickly got told that it's not on.
Yeah.
And they packed up and went home.
Yeah.
It was just like, well, okay, got out of there pretty quick. And yeah, there was no law enforcement involved. It was just other hunters told them, hey, it's not on.
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
Things
have changed.
That's an exciting future with the promotion. July 1, what are we going to see?
Look, I reckon there's certainly going to be a lot of activity around fishers and hunters talking to each other and four drivers talking to each other.
That sounds good. It's pretty much what we do in this podcast.
Yeah. But I think social media is going to light up, and you're going to have everyone saying, hey, I hunt and I fish and I camp, and I thought, what's my new reality look like? From Outdoor Rec Victoria's point of view, what we're going to say is that if the legislation is passed, and depending upon who's in the CEO's chair, and we're not sure where that's at yet, but it's very, very likely that we will have start flagging events that we're going to start doing. Working with all of the hunting clubs, going out and visiting, SSAA chapters, field and game chapters, catching up with ADA members, Four Drive Victoria, and going, hey, we're thinking about having something in Benalla or Mansfield or Wangaratta or, Corryong. What would you think about that? Where would we do it? We want to get people along. We might do something in the suburbs at Lilydale. So the thing about the VFA has been that we don't die wondering. We're out there all the time trying to push further into growing participation. So I think you'll see a lot of activity and a lot of energy from July 1.
Yeah, good. And you said about the hunters and fishers talking. I was just thinking, whilst hunters have largely embraced this because we come to it being part of that bigger picture makes hunting safer and helps to grow and promote hunting, it's been really heartening to see leaders in the fishing community. Trelly, not that you take for granted, you'd expect because he's got a foot in both camps, but people like Lee Spiro and Billy Klassen saying, this is great that we're all together and that we can do stuff together. And
a heap of the really significant players in the fishing space, they've almost been like closet hunters, and it's really...
I don't know if Trelly's been...
Well, certainly...
We've been closet fishermen, so that's...
certainly not Trelly, but... they're sort of coming out and going, it's great, and... a lot of people there were people at different times who felt intimidated to say I'm a hunter, but this government and with this commitment now is saying it's okay to be a hunter and it's okay to be proud of that and to talk about it. So that's really important. And coming back to fishers and the establishment of Outdoor Rec Victoria, one of the biggest challenges that fishers have faced in Victoria is access, right? And Barry, you know about all this very well, but there's been lots of different changes about access, and having a greater cohort of people on the same page saying, stop restricting our access, stop making arbitrary decisions, that for them is inspiring because they've sort of, it's almost like we've had 4 different groups fighting their own wars against access being restricted that can now come together and use that critical mass as a more significant cohort to say it's not right that you're closing that track.
Yeah, and the commonality of the issues. I know, like, hunters took a very strong stance supporting fishing with the licensed land access on riverbanks, and that's just on the basis of we've had the exact same issues in hunting for so many years, the commonality there, and if you're going to support the principle of public access for public land, then you support the principle of public access for public land.
I know, and it does fire some people up, but I'm just going, well, if you support the law and the law says that this is a public road then you can't have it both ways. You know, it's either legal to go down there and illegal to block that access. But there are a range of other areas where you might have water authorities restricting access because they don't see recreational users as their core constituency. They see bulk entitlement holders like, potable water and domestic supply users or environmental water holders or others. So you have them restricting access, and then you have land managers restricting access because of a range of different reasons that they might bring up. So it's not just trying to increase the footprint and build what we have. It's actually just maintaining what we've got now, and that's a fight every day.
Yeah, I mean, access is complex. When you look at hound hunting is a great example. Access can be restricted by seasonal baiting. So it's not anyone saying you're not allowed to hunt there. It's not anyone closing a gate. It's a land manager taking an action on that public land that effectively stops those people from accessing it.
Yeah.
So it's a complex piece. There's a land access panel in the legislation that's before Parliament for Outdoor Rec Victoria. It's going to be really interesting to see how that shapes up and if that helps us to cut through some of these issues.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And as you said, Barry, that's the first step, having the land access panel there, giving the panel teeth and having the right people on that panel and having it go in hard to fight. There's probably another 6 steps along the way, but it's a great first step because even achieving that was a really big thing. So, there are people out there consistently trying to water things down and maintain the status quo. And so, when you get those sorts of achievements, even though people go, well, is it going to make much of a difference? You go, well, I'll tell you what, just having it for a start was really big. Yeah. And where we get to now, at least we've got the foundation. The cement's laid to build a pretty good house there.
And look, I get it. If you've had exclusive access for next to no money to somewhere for ages, you're going to want to try and keep that.
It's hard to give up, isn't it?
That's not a good argument.
Yeah. Well, when you continually see properties advertised with exclusive river frontage, and I'm sitting there spitting my wheat bix out going, hang on, that's Crown Land river frontage along there. That's... yeah. And again, I've seen over my time where there have been changes in ownership in particular properties, and people move in and they decide that they want to put a gate up and they want to, and
happens all the time.
Exactly. And you go, people have had 50, 60 years of access to 5 kilometres of river here where they've camped, and now all of a sudden it's taken away and no one's doing anything about it. And sadly, there is a lot of buck passing that goes on between local government and transport and different land managers, and everyone goes, it's not our fault. And you go, well, there's still a gate there and I can't go camping with my kids now. And a big thing I'll just say on that, and this is a really important thing, and I really want to make this point, cost of living challenges are real. And there are a lot of single dads out there and single mums and others who look for something, an experience to have with their children that they can afford. Just getting the petrol to get out in the bush is one thing, but a lot of them can't afford $100 a night at a caravan park and all of the different... But when they can get a slice of river or a bit of bush where they can set up a campfire and sit around with their kids off screens, that's a really, really important thing, and we need to cherish that and hold on to it and not go down the English path or the European path where, it's just that those opportunities aren't available for working class people anymore.
I mean, I'm digressing a little bit here, but when that Great Forest National Park proposal was live, I remember going out to the poplars just out past New G there on a long weekend. and
It's
wall to
crazy
wall
town.
families, but families with the kids and with the pet dog. And I was looking at it going, this is their holiday.
Yeah.
This is their rest and family time and relaxation. And you take this away from them, they're not going to a caravan park and paying $1,000 to be there for a week. They can't.
Yeah.
It's real. I mean, the government's put that to bed, which is fantastic, but it's important.
And you've touched on a couple of other things there, like getting around, and the national parks are great and they have their purpose, but a lot of them where you can't take a dog and you can't take a gun and even an air rifle, you can't sit there with your son and shoot a few empty cans on a stump and chat to him about life as he's going through his teenage years. I mean, that's those opportunities are rare to do that, and being able to take your dog, even if it's a fox terrier that's your best friend and that sort of thing. So holding on to that ability where we have Crown land that you can still go up there, you can have a campfire, you can camp by yourself. You're not in a little square like at Wilson's Prom where you're in a line with 100 people and
Sharing a toilet block with 300 people.
Yeah, and you can't have your dog, you can't have a fire, you can't have anything. Like that. It is quintessentially an Australian. I suppose it is a luxury we've had for a long time that we do not want to give up because we live in a pretty harsh climate at times, flood and fire and snakes and all sorts of different things, and let's not lose that.
Yeah.
So.
And another thing I wanted to touch on was shared challenges between fishers and hunters, which we touched on with access. We've also got an animal rights lobby.
Yeah.
That look, hunters probably feel like we've been at the pointy end of that, but they do attack fishing and they're bound to keep attacking fishing. The whole principle's the same.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And many years ago in one of these previous jobs that we talked about, I talked to a few animal activists about this. And once you drill down to it, when you talked about, humanely culling feral species, a number of them said, we don't have a problem with that. And I go, well, okay. So it's interesting, so you have those sort of animal activists that say, so long as it's not native, it's okay for you to cull it. In fact, they support it. Then you have others that say, well, actually, you're not allowed to cull anything, regardless of what it is. And it gets a bit confusing who you're talking to.
I can actually understand the second group more than the first group, because at least they're consistent.
Yeah, that's right.
It kind of makes some sense.
Exactly. But what we're having, Barry, and this is with fishing, and I anticipate, I'm really looking forward to taking on this debate and discussion because I think we have a much stronger platform and position to be able to talk about this. But we're finding with the changing demographic across suburbs in Melbourne and regional Victoria that some of our lakes and waterways that we have fished for many decades are now being taken over by particular interest groups that are wanting to reserve them only for bird watching, and they're using all sorts of excuses like, oh, there's PFAS in the water, you can't fish in it. Cultural heritage reasons. They're talking about joggers. They're talking about all these other things, but ultimately they just don't want.
Not in my backyard.
Exactly, and for some of these places, these waterways have been the only opportunity for working class kids whose parents, have done it pretty hard to get out of the house and to go down and to enjoy some outdoor recreation. And now that's being taken away from them. So to have this discussion when it comes to particular secular interest groups about what they want to achieve, I think we need to broaden the discussion out and say, who are you looking after here? Are you looking after, children on screens? Are you looking after people's physical and mental health? Are you looking after, the economy of Victoria?
No, they look after themselves.
Yeah.
And it's fine to not like stuff, right? Plenty of stuff I don't like you said
Golf.
about golf.
Exactly.
The first chair of
anti-golf?
the GMA was Roger Hallam, and Roger had his great stump speech, and it was always ending with, I don't say you have to like it. Mm-hmm. What I say is you not liking it's not a good reason for me not to do it.
Mm. Yeah.
That's probably the difference that I notice between hunters and fishers compared to some of those other groups. We're not looking for sole access to any of these areas. We're happy to have multiple sort of use activities on public land, whereas there's a great deal of intolerance sort of coming from the other side. Sort of, I know we'll look after ourselves and you can sort of go somewhere else.
I don't think we've ever asked for exclusive access
we
to
don't.
anything.
Well, been seeing a fair bit, and this might be digressing a bit on duck season and the complaints about wetlands being supposedly shut to other users throughout duck season, and that's preventing all this tourism and kayakers and all these sort of things, which, when you actually look at it, is
Surprised they're not queuing up at 11 o'clock in the morning to get out there. Then.
It's completely false. And once again, those restrictions were brought in for public safety because of the actions of some of these activists. And that's the whole reason those restrictions were put in place. So it wasn't hunters saying, hey, we don't want anyone else in these wetlands. And the birds are still there. So bird watchers can still go there, kayakers can still go there. But just on those prescribed waters, they've got to go in after that 11 o'clock. So we haven't got that conflict. But 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, depending on where we are.
Just had that thought.
Move on to, I think, the science and the management, sustainable use of the resource, which I know is a key concern in fishing, as it has been certainly duck hunting over the last 10 years. Unfortunately, that conversation's really matured over the last couple of years, and we've got a solid science base that's working on duck hunting.
Well, the science base in duck hunting came from fishing.
Yeah,
the whole adaptive harvesting comes from fisheries.
Not so much on deer yet, but I think there's great opportunities in deer. But perhaps if you can run us through some of the really interesting science that's been done in Victoria on fish, because I speak to rec fishers, people like Lee, who are telling me the stuff they're doing in the bay with the artificial reefs and the stuff you're doing with native fish. It really is world leading.
Yeah, no, thanks, Barry. And it is. And I did some media the other day, and look, Victorian Fisheries Authority is a science-based organisation. We make our decisions based on science, and the facts speak for themselves in terms of where we're at with our fisheries. You've got WA, the demersal fisheries collapsed. South Australia's closed their calamari, snapper and whiting fisheries. Queensland's closed their Spanish mackerel fishery. Tassie are now closing their flathead fishery and their calamari fishery. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that they've over-allocated the resource to particular groups, right? And so when you over-allocate that resource and you have crashes, and then it crashes for everyone. And in Victoria, again, we've taken the hard steps to not do that. It wasn't popular at the time, but we've reallocated some of the catch from the commercial sector to the recreational sector. We've made some areas really only recreational fisheries. But we also have really robust commercial fisheries that we are maintaining in rock lobster and abalone and down at Corner Inlet, and also with our offshore trawl. Thinking about moving forward with Outdoor Rec Victoria, it'll continue to be pivotal to us that we can demonstrate, particularly when we're talking about the harvesting of native species, that we have a very robust thing underpinning that, our duck season, quail and others. But we do the same with Murray cod currently. We have very strict size and bag limits, and our science continues to evolve. When I first started fishing for Murray cod, there was no bag limit, there was no size limit. You could use as many set lines as you want. You could basically throw a grenade in the water. That's just a joke, by the way. You couldn't do that. I'm sure some of the old timers did.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it happened.
Yeah. And now we're at a point where we've got really good bag limits and size limits. We've got more people catch a metre plus Murray cod in Victoria than
I think. That's unbelievable.
Since the 1920s. I was fortunate to be with a friend at Cairncurran a couple of weeks ago, and I won't name that friend, but he got an 84 centimetre cod that would have gone close to 25 kilos out of my boat on my lure. I'm never going to speak to him again, right? I had the unenviable task of trying to put a net around this thing. But I just thought, what a great experience. And we've got there because we continue to look at the science. We continue to see what the science tells us. We put a slot size on dusky flathead down at Lake Tyers and the Gippsland Lakes. We've reduced our bag limit on kingfish to make sure that we have, you got 2 1 metre kingfish. How many kingfish do you need in a day? I mean, that's
plenty.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're doing things to make sure that we continue to have the strongest fisheries. And when it comes to game management, we'll do the same things to make sure that you can go out and get a feed of ducks. You can go out and get a feed of venison. Whatever you're out there hunting, you can do it, and you can do it in the future. So we don't have to have full closures on things like other states have done because they haven't, I don't believe, had the strength to actually make the decisions they need to make and bring people along with them on the way. And Barry, I'll come back to it. Before any decision we make, we get, we go all across Victoria. We sit down with all the key opinion leaders. We meet with all the organisations and we talk to them about it. We talk about the data and we talk about the science and we also listen and we hear what they're telling us. They don't want to see 20 kingfish metre plus bleeding on the bottom of a boat with two blokes that have gone out and got their 10 each and you got 300 kilos of kingfish there and they're going, they don't want to see that. So, yeah.
And it's interesting, so it's obvious that your management's adaptive and that things keep changing. Much like in hunting, the technology keeps changing in fishing as well, and the method of take and the efficacy of take. Live scoping's a really big issue in fishing, a bit like thermals were in deer hunting a couple of years, or still are, I suppose. Yeah. So it's interesting. All of that keeps changing. You can't just sit and say, "Oh, this is the science. We'll stick with it."
Oh, 100%. And years ago, we had a big issue come up about electric reels where people were going out off the shelf fishing for southern bluefin tuna and they were dropping down for blue-eyed trevally, and what constituted recreational fishing and what constituted then basically commercially harvesting. And we brought a rule in, it needs to be able to be attached to a rod with a reel on it, right? So sure, you can still push a button and it goes down and comes up, but it has to be a rod and a reel. It can't just be a box with two lines coming out. So as these things come up, we look at them and that live scoping debate, I love that debate because there's all these people out there saying how terrible live scoping is because it's not fair, it's fish in a barrel. I've gone out 5 times on a boat with live scope. Do you know how many fish I've caught using live scope?
How much poorer are you then?
Yeah. Oh, no, well, I don't own one because I know that's a waste on me. But I'll tell you, all these people go, it's unfair. It's just fish in a barrel. I've got, like, where were you? I was out on Eildon all night, we saw some fish on the scope, but you couldn't get them to take the lure.
That's cool. Just seeing them's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be an important part going forward, obviously, the science, and we're really keen to see that continue with game, of course. And that science and that animal welfare thing leads us really into the big shared challenge, which is social licence.
Yeah.
And again, that's not a fixed thing, social licence. Community attitudes keep changing.
Yeah.
You mentioned with fishing, the social licence amongst fishers, once it was you could do whatever you wanted with cod, try and do it. Now, we're seeing the same with deer hunting in a regard. A dozen or so years ago, if somebody poached a hog deer off Snake Island, it was pretty well seen as a victimless crime amongst a lot of people in the deer hunting community.
It was celebrated by some.
Because, well, screw it, no one's allowed to hunt them there anyway. So what's the issue? Now, if you were to get caught poaching a hog deer off Snake Island, you'd be drawn and feathered.
Yeah.
And so you should be. So, it's interesting how that all changes. Looking towards the future, I suppose, what do you think there's going to be an integrated outdoor recreation policy? Do you see a time when parties just go to elections saying, not this is our fishing, this is our hunting, this is our four-wheel driving, just as you said, Labor probably did back in 2006, so they go and say, this is where we are in outdoor rec and it's one cohesive thing.
Yeah, I think proof's going to be in the pudding about how successful we make Outdoor Rec Victoria. So say it is established on the 1st of July, and I talked about that frenetic energy at the start. The runs are going to have to be on the board. It was a big thing in Victoria and for hunters and for fishers that they had standalone authorities named after the sport that they like, right? Again, around Australia, it's Department of Ag. Fishing is in Department of Ag. But having that, even though it doesn't seem like a big thing, it is a big thing. So if we can demonstrate through this that as a fisherman, as a hunter, as a four driver, and as a camper, life is better for you. There are things that are happening that you didn't think you were going to be achieved. That the whole way that you conduct your recreation is being managed well. Then I think that there is a likelihood. But if it tips at any point the other way, it would be very easy for stakeholders to go, actually, I really just liked my fishing authority. I really just liked my game authority because I feel like we're the forgotten cousin here or something like that. So it'll be up to those that are in charge of Outdoor Rec Victoria right from the start to make everyone feel that, that life will be better, that the benefits outweigh any of the possible negatives, and that together and combined, we can be a very powerful entity. My thing, and I'll say this really quite openly, is I wouldn't want to start bringing in a lot of disparate other recreational user groups into this cohort.
Here's where we get our cycling reference in, Darren.
Yeah.
Sorry, cyclists.
Mountain bikers.
We like cyclists, but we don't really want them brought into this fold.
Well, that's my thing, is because
They've got sport and recreation. That's
the thing,
that's where they
right?
So keep it at blast and cast, huh?
Well, no, they're your words.
This was one of the concerns that sort of we had when this first came up. Obviously, there's huge opportunities with Outdoor Rec Victoria, but the concern we have is that hunting not being as big as fishing might end up being the poor cousin. So we're sort of really encouraging to hear what you've been saying, but really take that point that sort of how it starts off and how it develops over time and delivers outcomes for all the sort of groups involved is going to be really critical, because if you start losing sort of stakeholder groups, it's going to be hard to get them back.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, and that's the onus is going to be on us to prove that this model works, right? And it's going to be on us to allay those fears of hunters and four drivers and campers. I mean, I would have loved in this model for us to have some land and river actual responsibility, and openly I've said that, and I'd move forward in the future.
Nice.
Yeah, in the future to say that
there's 200 state game reserves sitting there that not to bag Parks Victoria at all, they don't want them.
Yeah,
and nor should they really. It doesn't fit their core model. It's just 200 parcels of land extra that they've got to manage.
Yeah. So I think these are some of the things to aspire to in the future. If we can make this Outdoor Rec Victoria model work, and then you move towards maybe the next iteration of it is that it's managing some land and some water and other things like that, then you do have other entities that maybe don't see this recreational pastime as part of their core business. I mean, they might be reluctant at the start, but if they don't have to worry about, whether people are camping or where they're camping, all the rest of it, and that's someone else's role, then they can get on with doing what they do. So I just see there's a lot of opportunity, and I'll come back to it. Often it's about the personnel, and the people that I know at the GMA and at the VFA at the moment, like, they are so inspired by this change, and they're also, they're just good people, and so they're not going to sit there and fold their arms up and go, well, we're not going to do this for those guys. So I'm very motivated by the group of people that we've got there and the success we've had in the last 10 years, and the people that are at the GMA. Really looking forward to engaging with the four-wheel drive people as well. But really, the camping groups, it's us. It's people who go fishing. It's people who go hunting. It's people who go four-wheel driving. We don't need to go out there and try and manufacture groups that might be into other pastimes. It's the people that we have currently and who love going out and camping in the bush. So, yeah.
And if they're camping and they're not hunting or fishing, then we just got to convert them, I suppose.
Yeah, what are they doing out there?
Well, we've got 300,000 fishers we need to bring on board. So.
Yeah, well, my wife, she knows a very, very hard rule. She'll find beautiful spots to go camping. She goes, yes, I know. There has to be some body of water that you can try and catch something out of. So, yeah.
She knows the drill.
Yeah.
Well, we've got the Target 1 million fishing campaign. Are we going to be looking at a Target 100,000 game licence campaign?
Well,
I'd
why
love
not?
to see that.
I think it'd be fantastic. Why wouldn't we try and grow it as a pastime? And, again, I touched on Mansfield earlier, but you look at Kerrang, look at Mansfield, look at any of these regional towns that benefit so much from having people in there hunting. And, like Portland. At some point in time, Portland as a town, which is southwest Victoria, it's been heavily reliant upon Alcoa. It's been heavily reliant on wood chips and timber and all that. At some point, that may change, but it's now an iconic barrel tuna fishery.
It sure is.
And when that change occurs, Portland will survive on the back of that. And I'd like to think we get 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 Victorians out there hunting. We have a great way of continuing to support our regional communities. So.
Mansfield and Eildon are really a great example of the synergy in hunting and fishing because they all just go in together around there. Like you fish cod in Eildon, you hunt at Eildon, you go into Mansfield in the town, and like hunting and fishing are the same thing.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and it's all across Victoria now that you can see that footprint, and we see it with fishing and where we stock. We stock 280 odd different waterways, but people talk about before that happened. Like you look at Oyen, for example. Oyen, they built it. The community came together and built an incredible lake there. I think they call it the Luke O'Sullivan Lake there at Oyen. They built this incredible lake, and now every time I'm going up to Mildura with the family, we pop in there, and there's always people fishing there and recreating there. Now I'm not sure if you're allowed to knock a duck that's sitting on the lake there, but it is incredible for that town.
And that's I know we digress, but I mean cod fishing since VFA's come in, the Arcadia hatcheries. An amazing facility. Those native fish are well on the road to recovery. It's fishing that's driven. It's recreational fishing and people valuing the resource and actually wanting to catch them and sometimes put them on the table that has driven the recovery of that resource, isn't it?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And you're growing up in the 70s and 80s, and everyone knows. I mean, cod were just basically on the brink. They were almost extinct. If someone caught a big cod, it'd be page 3 of the Herald Sun, right? It was that rare for that to happen. The same actually was occurring with snapper in the bay. But now we've got a hatchery, a $20 million hatchery at Shepparton that's got 130 dams in it. Like it's mind-blowing how big the place is. It's the biggest native fish hatchery in Australasia now. It'll produce 6 to 7 million fish a year. And the reason that was built was we were purchasing fish from New South Wales, but New South Wales started selling those fish offshore, right? The private farmers over there were getting hit up, and we were no longer able to source them. So the only way Victoria could absolutely maintain the fisheries we've got is to take it into our own hands. So we've done it at Snobs Creek, we've done it at Arcadia, but why cut the same ideas? And I mean, look at Harts Morass, down in Gippsland. The same things can be applied to hunting as well, and how we come around hunting. Now, obviously, cod are a native species, and we have a bag limit on cod. So I just nothing is off the table, and I love the idea that we continue to innovate. And I use this story like a number of years ago. The Delatite River, you'd cross coming out of Mansfield towards Jamison. You cross the Delatite. It literally had turned into a bit of a drain. There was no trees on either side of it. You wouldn't find a fish there to save yourself. Fast forward 15 years, it's been rehabilitated, revegetated, both sides, fenced off, trees all the way along, boulders in the river. It's a beautiful fishery. Now, I like to think that the future that we have is one that we make, and that when people talk about how good things used to be in a time gone past, it doesn't have to be that it can't be that good again. And I reckon the deer hunting in Victoria now is the best it's ever been in my life.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And it can get better, but that's not to say there are not other species that that are out there that could also contribute towards a great hunting experience.
Yeah, and that habitat is key. And that's, Baz was talking about state game reserves. Yeah. And a lot of those haven't got ideal habitat at the moment, but the basis is there. So particularly for your ducks and quail in some of it, and down in Gippsland, some of the hog deer habitat down there, that eventual management of those areas would be absolutely fantastic for hunting.
Yeah, without habitat, whether it's fish or game, they don't exist. You're talking about the cod, you look at what they did to the wetlands in northern Victoria around Kerrang, the Bar Creek, for instance, around Serpentine, all those creeks are all turned into channels. They're all dredged. Every snag was taken out. The Murray River was cleared of every snag. They spent the last 10 years putting all those snags and obstacles back in the river courses, and guess what? There's more fish.
Yeah.
It's just habitat's got to be the key.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We missed anything?
Oh, we could go all day, couldn't we?
We got cycling in.
I got cycling in. I guess the only question I've got is how do we bring along these 300,000 fishers? So we've got 60,000 game hunters. How do we bring along 300,000 fishers?
I don't think you have to do much. I think they're natural brothers and sisters. We're all in it together. You know, well, we all are. It's some people target snapper, some people target deer, or some people target a wood duck. You know, like we're all doing the same thing. We're out there. We're off screens. We're out of the office, or we've put the tools down. We want to be out in the bush. We want to be on the water, and we want to be supported in doing that. And I don't think fishers in no way see hunters as anything other than a partner in what they do. A, because a lot of them are already hunters, but B, because we're in the same cohort. That we want to be outside. I'd make this point. Like within fisheries currently, there'll always people who say we should put more resources into science, or we should pour more resources into compliance. And when we come together as an organisation, we'll have those discussions. Oh no, more should go into hunting, or more should go into this or that. That's okay, and then we'll work through that, because compromise is always the way to achieve anything. And you'll get a little bit. You mightn't get everything you want, but you'll get a little bit. We keep moving forward. But I think ultimately having and we do regional expos, having regional expos where you've got tables with people talking about deer hunting, tables with people talking about trout fishing, table with people selling cod lures and others. That's that's sort of a dream for a lot of people, being able to go to those things.
I'm pretty excited about the concept.
Absolutely.
I've been up to Codference a few times, and it's a fantastic day.
Yeah.
Codference up in Shepparton. I think you're moving it to Wang or somewhere, aren't you?
Yeah, we couldn't get the Civic Centre, so we get 400 people in a room there, and we put on some food and some giveaways, and we just have like-minded people come in. Stand by for deerference. Or duckference.
Duckference.
Yeah, no, it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
All right, very good. I think we'll leave it there on a positive note. Thanks for joining us very much, Trav, and we look forward to a bright future, all in the same boat, pardon the pun, with Outdoor Rec Victoria. Thanks, listeners, for joining us. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like, please subscribe, please share it to your friends. That helps to grow our reach and get more viewers, and share this message out a bit further. So thank you, everyone at home, for your support.